This recording is for the interpersonal unit paper. It will go through the expectations and the assignment itself so that you know what you need to do to complete this assignment. The interpersonal unit paper is worth 75 points and it is due at the end of the day on the final day of our class, which is Saturday, August 3rd. So the first thing that you need to do for this paper is to have a conversation with someone that you know well. This can be anybody that you choose. It could be a friend, colleague, family member, a romantic partner, anybody that you would like. I would like for the person to be an adult, so 18 years or older. If you are younger than 18, sometimes I have high school students that take this course, you are welcome to have a conversation with someone who is similar age to you. So what I don't want is for you to have a conversation with a young child, because that is a different type of interpersonal communication than what we're studying in this class. We're looking at specifically at adult conversations. When you have your conversation with the other person, I would like you to have a normal conversation that you would have in your day-to-day life. So you are not going to be talking about your communication class and interpersonal communication unless that's something you would normally talk about with this person. So for example, I would probably choose to have a conversation with my husband, and we might talk about our plans for going camping on the Denali Highway and what we need to take and when that's going to happen and those types of things. Other examples might include friends talking about what happened over the weekend, a romantic couple talking about a vacation they're planning to go on, colleagues discussing new rules at work. You can decide, but just sort of a normal conversation that you would have. The weird piece about this is that I'm going to ask you to record the conversation, which might make it feel a little bit awkward. With that being said, I encourage you to try to record for around 30 minutes because that's how long it can take a little bit for the conversation to flow more naturally. So if you cut it off at 5 or 10 minutes, it might not be a very realistic representation of a conversation that you normally have. The person that you have a conversation with does not need to be in the same room as you. It could be a phone conversation or a FaceTime conversation. It also does not need to necessarily be in English. So if English is not your first language, you don't need to speak in English for the conversation because I don't collect the conversation. You'll write a paper based on the conversation, but the conversation itself can have topics that might not be appropriate for school, curse words, or be in another language. That's all completely fine because you will not be submitting the recording itself. Please make sure that the other person that you are speaking with knows that the conversation is being recorded and that you're going to be using that recording as the basis for the paper that you submit. I will be the only one who reads your paper. This assignment will not be shared with other people in the class, so that might make a difference for the person that you're having a conversation with. After you have this conversation, I would like you to take your conversation and talk about it using 3 different topics from the communication textbook, the interpersonal communication textbook. So your interpersonal communication text, let me just go. So if you go to the table of contents and just look through here, there are lots of different topics that you could potentially choose when it comes to the conversation that you had with the other person that you talked to. So for example, if I had a conversation with my husband, I might look at this family and marriage relationships chapter and glance through there to see if there's any information that might pertain to the conversation that I had. You do not have to use just information that is covered in the class. This is a chance for you to look outside of that and gather information from other parts of the text as well. Again, you're going to use 3 different topics from the text. You do not have to have a reference page because it is a common text that we are all using, but you do need to include chapters and sections. So for example, you might say, according to chapter 12, section 3, it states blah, blah, blah. And then you would go on from there. But you do not have to have a reference page unless you bring in other information outside of our common textbook. The second page looks at the actual grading and what needs to happen in order for you to receive full credit. So I need some sort of introduction where you tell me about the person that you had a conversation with. Who is this person? What is your relationship with them? What did you talk about? If you don't want to use the person's real name, that's fine, but you can still describe who this person is. From there, you will go in depth about 3 topics from the textbook, from the Interpersonal Communication textbook. And I've given you some potential topics here that include eye contact, models of self-disclosure, confirming messages, supportive behaviors, love languages, types of friendships. The list goes on and on. You can choose anything that you would like from the Interpersonal Communication text. For each of your topics, you should have a couple of paragraphs where you go into detail. The way that my brain works with this is that I like to give a paragraph of information from the text. So this is what love languages are, and then relate it to the conversation that I had. So taking that information and then talking about it in relation to the conversation. You do need to use both specific examples and details from the text as well as from that conversation that you had with someone else. That can be direct quotes or summaries, but it needs to be as specific as possible. After you've gone through those 3 main topics and given examples from both the text and the conversation, then you need some sort of conclusion. This usually is where students talk about any takeaways from the conversation. So was there anything that you learned or found to be especially interesting during this experience of analyzing the conversation? If so, the conclusion is a good place to include that. Normally, students find this to be a really engaging and fun activity, but it does take time, especially with the recording. So that's why you start seeing information about the interpersonal paper starting in week 2, so that you can start moving towards getting this done. So the final paper is due on the last day of class, which is Saturday, August 3rd, and you can find the submission link in the week 5 folder. If you have any questions or concerns, please make sure that you reach out and let me know.